For me, it all started last January. I had just gotten back to Fort Worth from a long holiday vacation filled with family, friends, and fun. But I was ready to get back to a routine here at TCU. My first stop, the TCU Rec Center, to start working off some of the results of my overindulgences of eggnog and holiday treats. As I'm happily driving down Stadium Drive, my heart suddenly stops. I'm not greeted by the friendly, empty parking lot I was expecting, but by a fenced-off heap of dirt and concrete. Followed by expletives and inappropriate gestures, I decide to go home and find out what really is going on here. To my horror, I learned that they're not simply going through a repavement process, but completely demolishing my beloved rec center parking lot for a new admissions building. From this very moment, I knew that TCU parking and I would not be getting along. Parking at TCU really is a problem. And for those of you who have been riding your magic carpets to class and don't really understand how problematic parking can be, I'll fill you in. First, we'll talk about the simple fact that there aren't enough spots on campus for the entire student body. Then we'll talk about the resulting problems from this fact. And finally, we'll talk about a very controversial topic here at TCU, TCU police. First of all, there are simply not enough spots for all of the student body. According to Parking Director Deanne Jones, there are 6,000 spots available on campus. She told me that 5,800 parking passes were sold to students, and at first this confused me. Because if there were enough spots for every student who bought a parking sticker, then I would always have somewhere to park, and my daily cussing count would be far down. But then she told me that some of these 6,000 spots are reserved for some faculty and staff. Some. I'm pretty sure there are well over 1,000 faculty and staff here at TCU. So let's do some basic math. 5,800 students with parking stickers, plus roughly 1,500 faculty and staff members, is 7,300 people vying for spots, vying for 6,000 spots. Am I the only one who gets it here? Chelsea Smith, a TCU student, in her skiff letter to the editor, puts it quite simply. The school student population is on the rise, and there are no hints that this trend will change soon. Yet for some reason, university administrators continue to respond to this influx of new students by further reducing the already limited number of parking spaces on campus. The logic behind this strategy has always eluded me. But TCU senior Kate Putney puts it even simpler, and in my opinion, more eloquently. TCU parking sucks. There are numerous problems that result from this lack of parking. From fights, stress, tardiness, car wrecks, the list goes on. You've all been there before. You're running a couple minutes late to class, so you decide to hop in your car and race over to campus in search of the holy grail of TCU, a parking spot. Only to pull into the lot and see rows and rows of parked cars, with rows and rows of stalker cars anxiously waiting. Stalker cars. These are the ones who sit idle in the middle of the lot, waiting for one of us to walk out of class to our cars, creepily follow us all the way to our spot at 1 mile an hour, flip on their blinker, and claim that spot as their own. Don't get me wrong, I do it too, but for some reason it really pisses me off when you guys do. Knowing the unwritten etiquette of TCU parking, you decide to move on to the next lot, and the next lot, and the next lot, until you find yourself all the way over at the Sandage parking lot, waiting with a crowd of 25 for a 15-person shuttle. But good news, according to the police chief, Steve McGee, they're adding a GPS system to the shuttles so that we can know exactly when the next shuttle will arrive. Well, that's great. Now all we need for them to do is issue baseball bats to fight everyone for an actual spot on the bus. But hey, at least now we can all awkwardly stare at the GPS monitor instead of pretending to text on our phones so as to avoid any eye contact or forced small talk. And we thought final exams would be the most stressful part of college. The TCU parking lot is a battlefield on which the fittest survive. And the overabundance of 5-foot-tall frat boys driving huge King Ranch trucks certainly doesn't bode well for those of us driving smaller vehicles. But those of us that aren't mighty enough for physical intimidation certainly have our words and our gestures. I mean, if I wanted to see this kind of behavior, I could head to the local trashy bar. I certainly don't want to see it at 9 a.m. on a Monday morning. TCU police, did your blood pressure just raise? What is the core of so many student complaints of these men and women whose job is to help and protect us? Parking. The image of Officer So-and-so's enormous grin while waltzing down the aisles of parked cars issuing citations will never be erased from memory. Dean Jones gave me the statistics for parking tickets in September of 2010. 2,612. That's 2,612 parking tickets in only 20 school days, which is roughly 131 tickets a day. If each of these tickets is the minimum of $50, which likely they're more, that means that TCU raked in $130,600 in just 1 month. That's more than any of us will make when we get out of college, probably twice as much. Yes, thank you, Mr. TCU police officer, for issuing me my $50 parking citation when my best friend's car window is smashed in and all her belongings are stolen. Or while that freshman boy is getting his ass kicked by upperclassmen. Or while that girl is walking home too late from the library and is followed and attacked by a sexual assaulter. My point is that if there is more parking available on campus, our TCU police force can use their valuable time addressing these way more important issues than where we park our cars. So how will this issue of parking on campus be fixed? How can students go back to stressing about final exams and what their weekend plans are, and TCU police do more meaningful work? Here's a thought: build a freaking parking garage. In a skip interview with Vice Chancellor Don Mills, he addresses this issue. And great news, we're getting a parking lot, finally, in 5+ years. Maybe this is worth sticking around for. I'd be at least a 10th year senior, and my tuition would probably absorb most of the building costs. Maybe they even name it after me. The Erin E. Quick Garage. Mills cites funding as the main reason that a parking garage hasn't been in the works sooner, as it's not a part of the Campaign for TCU fundraiser. Why is that fundraiser? Well, of course, these funds are used for more sexy buildings, like Scarborough Hall, for instance. Well, Vice Chancellor Mills, nothing is less sexy than the way I look and smell after I run half a mile from my parking spot into class in the 105-degree heat. Remember that $130,000? Don't tell me we don't have enough funds for a garage. We don't have much to complain about here at TCU, but parking clearly is a problem. But it's a problem that's fixable. While my hissy fit of expletives and gestures seemed fitting at the time, I realize now that there are far better solutions. TCU students have a voice, and if we want this issue to be fixed, then we need to make that voice heard.